In your book, All That Glitters, Pinky told you about having, not to wear other people's style, to have your own style. And that, to me, was what made you, as an artist, Antoinette, stand out so much, because you were different than a lot, not only the female rappers that were coming out, but just period. Like, you were harder, you could rap over any type of beat, and you were doing all these different things. So, and that's why it's important to educate and to teach kids and others about what's really going on. It's always not only what you see. There's a lot of other stuff going on that you may not be aware of.
It's true. My grandmother, well, my great grandmother who raised me, I remember she always said, don't follow fashion, let fashion follow you. And she said, you do what you like, you wear what you like, and let other people follow that. And that just allowed you to be unique and be yourself.
Well,
And I guess that bothered me when the music industry, when they were trying to take me away from me, because I fought so hard to be me.
right. And I thought it was interesting too with Pinky, your great grandmother, that most people bond, with their grandmother or whatever. But how and why was your great grandmother able? You guys were able to develop that such a strong bond.
Well, my grandmother died when my mother was 7 years old. So my mother really grew up. Her father raised her and her siblings. So when my mother had me, my great grandmother stepped in and she took me and my little sister from my mother, and she raised the two of us. So it just so happens that I didn't have a grandmother to go to.
Gotcha.
And my great grandmother was still able to take care of us. So, I mean, it was fortunate for me. It was a blessing for me, because had I grown up in a different environment, I might not even be sitting here talking to you today.
Yeah.
It's like I was able to see two different worlds and decide which world I wanted to be in. But I had to fit in both worlds.
Well, that's one of the amazing things about All That Glitters and your life. Speaking of some of the bad things that happened to you on the business side of things, and even personally with some of your relationships, your romantic relationships and your marriages and stuff. But the thing that also amazed me is this parallel universe you were living in, to where you were going to school and you were getting these jobs, and then eventually setting yourself up educationally and then professionally to really stand on your own and to achieve that. So, given the problems you had in your personal life with your relationships in particular, and even with your dad and finding out later who your dad was, all this personal stress you were going through, how were you able to compartmentalize that and then excel and do so well outside of that?
I think that from a child, I was able to compartmentalize things, and that um, was a part of a strength. Like, some people will see it as a weakness, I guess, depends on how you see it. But that allowed me to continue to push forward. There was so much going on in my life at different times in my life that I just felt like it would have been just too much of a heavy weight to carry. So what I would do is put something to the side, forget about that, and focus on this thing. So even though there's 10,000 things going on over here, my main focus is this thing. I'm one person. I'm going to do one thing at a time. And I have to decide what's worth my time and energy, what's going to benefit me in the long run. And that's what I had to go with. So I had to push things to the side. I had the ability in relationships to detach myself from a relationship emotionally completely and focus on the end game and where it is that I wanted to be. And I'm just used to it, I guess. And it's like I said, from a child, it's normal to me. I don't know, like I said, some people see it, as not being a good thing, but for me, it allowed me to thrive in the midst of adversity. So for me, it's a good thing.
Right. Because you talk about in All That Glitters, just walking away after Burning at 20 Below, soon after that came out, because of how things were going. And that just, I wanted, that it shocked me in a lot of ways, because I didn't know before reading All That Glitters, your book, about that. But um, emotionally, how I know you kind of just explained it, but in a different way because this is an artistic thing. How were you able to push that to the side and not pursue that after having the success that you were having?
Well, I always loved and still do. I always loved hip hop, right? It was like my avenue, it was my out. But it got to the point when you walk in a room and you realize to the people that you're talking to that you thought cared about you as a person, at least, you're nothing but a dollar sign. When you walk in, they see dollars and cents, right? When you realize these very same people that are smiling in your face have been ripping you off, they're getting checks off of your back. They've stole your publishing. They've done all of this stuff because now, like I said, you don't know what you don't know. But when you become cognizant of the fact that these things exist and that you should have had this, this, and this, and this, and you're sitting here and the only way you're going to get paid is if you go do a show and they might throw you some crumbs over here, you know, that doesn't work. So when, like I said, you sit back, you look at all of that stuff and you start to say, okay, I can't do this anymore. When I started rapping, I had a 2-year-old daughter. So it wasn't that I was ever, I was a mother as a teenager. So I have a child that I have to provide for. And it's like, how am I going to take care of my child with you taking all of my money? And that's when my attitude sets in. And I didn't have the knowledge at that time to say, oh, just get an attorney and fight this thing. It was like, what's my alternative here? What do I do to make sure that I'm okay and that I can stand and be a role model to this little girl and take care of her and provide her with the things that she needs? That's where my head was when I walked away. So I didn't look back. I didn't miss getting ripped off. I didn't miss dealing with somebody who, I shouldn't say somebody, with an organization that was attempting to change who I was and portray me as somebody totally different that I can't uphold that image. I was never like a crackerjack rapper. I can't uphold that. I can't do that. Like, how long could that last?
Right.
So it was just a lot of things that was going on. And I think everything happens for a reason. We don't understand it. At the time, it may not feel good. It may not be what we want. But at the end of the day, I'm just grateful that I'm still standing. I'm still here because with everything that I've been through on top of that, it's just great to be here, period. And then to come back to hip hop after all these years later when nobody had seen me and to resurface and to get the love and appreciation that I got. And what was interesting, and I guess I should say this, the truth of the matter was when I walked away, I didn't even think that I mattered to hip hop.
Really?
Right. Now, like I said, your perception is your reality. I was getting jerked around. People were trying to change my image. I didn't know how other artists felt about me because the people, the camp that I was with kind of kept me secluded. Nobody even saw me too much, right? So I only know what's happening here. I don't know what people are saying about Antoinette, even. So when I walked away, it's like, what difference did it make? That's how I felt.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I came back, and I went to, I think it was Foxwood Casinos in Connecticut. And Redman and Method Man was performing, and I went. And Method Man called me out there, and he told, the crowd, he said, in Rottweiler, when I say I used to battle cruise back when Antoinette had an attitude, he said, this is Antoinette. He's like, she's my favorite female rapper. And I was like, wow. I'm just saying the accolades. Rakim, Don't Sweat the Technique tour. I went to one of his shows with him and Yo-Yo. And he brought me on stage, and he's like orally potent, lethal but steady, And it just felt so good to understand. Busta Rhymes. He told me I inspired him. He had my picture on his bedroom wall, and him and his friends talked about me in the lunchroom at school. And it was like, yo, for real? And you just never know the people that you touch. And so I realized that my perception wasn't the true reality, even though it was mine at the time.
Right.
So it just was very interesting.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, because that's why I was asking you earlier about being around Kane, because from your book, All That Glitters, it did seem like they were keeping you away from stuff. And since that was an example of a time where you were kind of outside the next plateau, quote unquote, circle, family, whatever, I was curious about that. So, you have the book, All That Glitters, that came out that people can get worldwide via Amazon.
Yeah, and on my website. You can
So,
get a hard copy on the website. It's www.therealantoinette.com.
okay. Well, that's good to know. I'll need to get one of those because I got the digital version. But
Okay.
the what made you then, after all the time, want to write a book as you were making this reentrance?
My book was a healing for me, similar to what I've been telling you, writing stuff in the journal. It was my expression, because as I started to think about it, I realized that I'm not just a testament to myself, but to so many. There are a lot of people that are going through some of the stuff that I've already been through. And if I can make it through it, I'm encouraging them, saying that you can make it through too, because you have people in bad relationships, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, people who are sexually assaulted, sexually molested as a child, just different things that has happened in people's lives that cause them to build walls. And, I understand about walls because I built up a lot of them, right? And sometimes I talk now to my friends and the walls came tumbling down because I had to kick down some walls. But we build up walls to keep things out, but we also keep things in. And that's what kills us. And so it's important to understand what you have behind that wall with you. Why are you the way that you are? But when somebody can be that example to you and say, I don't imagine how you feel. I know exactly how you feel. I've been there. I came through. I'm a survivor. I'm an overcomer. You can too. Girl, you got this. It could be, boy, you got this. Because there's a lot of men that go through the same thing. Even though a lot of times they suffer in silence, because it wouldn't be masculine. It's not manly for you to cry out for help. I mean, I've done interviews, and interestingly enough, some of the hosts that were talking to me told me they were molested by aunts and different people. So, I mean, this is prominent out here. The things are happening, and they rip you of your self-esteem, your voice, and so much more. And then bad relationships. It's easy to succumb to bad relationships because you tend to look for love in all the wrong places, and you mistake control for love. People who have issues, you think that they love you because of the way that they're acting, but they're really abusers in disguise.
Right. And another tied into that with All That Glitters, one of the powerful things about it to me was you talked about how you realized that you were damaged, and you didn't realize that till much later.
Right.
So, given that through your relationships, your marriages, the different things that you experienced, what finally made it click to you that you were damaged and that you did need to start this healing process yourself?
When you go through things and everything seems out of place, and you go through a cycle of things happening over and over again, right? You say, well, what is it? What is it that, am I doing something wrong? And I realized that I was looking for someone to make me feel good about me. And so I would bend over backwards in relationships, and I would compromise myself, my feelings, and different things just because they added value. They made me feel valuable, I should say, right? And then you start to realize that was my problem. The first thing you have to do is learn to love yourself. When you love yourself, that gives you the statement, I will not, ... Okay? I will not allow someone to treat me like a doormat. I will not allow you to put your hands on me talking about you sorry after you do something bad to me. Right? It's like I will not, and what I will do is love myself, stand strong, know that I'm valuable, know that I'm worth too much for junk and garbage, and know that I have to keep my backpack on my back at all times with my sneakers in it. And I am not afraid to run. Get out of Dodge when you feel that the situation is not for you, because you love yourself too much to compromise and to allow anybody to treat you like less than what you feel you deserve. So my turning point, it took a long time, as you can see. I mean, when you read the book, it wasn't like I had this epiphany when I was 20 something. At 20 something, I was still going through the same thing. It was after a while, it's like, you know, sometimes you start looking in the mirror and you say, what's wrong with me? And it's not about what's wrong with you. It's about what's right with you and what's wrong with someone else.
Right.
Right? Because it's almost like people talk a lot now about energy, right? And positive vibes, and what you project, you attract. So if you're damaged, you're going to attract damaged people, right? They gravitate towards you. And then it makes you feel good because you're taking care of somebody else and you don't have to deal with you.
Right.
So I got to the point where I realized I don't really need to take care of a damaged individual. I have to encourage and inspire them to take care of themselves and to stand on their own. And I have to find myself in a relationship with somebody who is good all by themselves. I'm good all by myself. And then we can come together and be good together because we choose to share, if that makes sense. But that was a growing process. So I try to teach my kids that early, because Lord knows I don't want them going through what I went through.
Right. Well, I think it's, you know, it's admirable that you wrote All That Glitters from Attitude to Gratitude, because it's a very, it's a painful experience. And I think that you really dealt with it in a way. And I think one thing that we have to do, you know, nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes. And I think that, you know, when you were writing about your acknowledging some of your own mistakes that you had made is the one of the keys, because people, you know, you got to look at yourself too, and use that to empower yourself, like you just said.
It's true.
Yeah, Antoinette, well, we really appreciate you coming through Unique Access Entertainment. It's great having you. Thank you for your time.
It was great being here. Like I said, I appreciate the invite.